الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا من سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الحج حج محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. After praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it gives me immense pleasure and a great feeling to return back to this house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and such privileged friends that I had in my stay in the International Islamic University of Islamabad. You can see that these are some of the fruits, the bushra, the glad tidings that inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places on this world for the believers. And we aspire that these words that we disseminate today will be none other than the glad tidings. وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ, and my ability is only by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just to give people the targheeb, the encouragement that there are various places of learning where a person can go and learn the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and return back to this country and benefit humanity, and firstly to benefit oneself. And this concept of targheeb and tarheeb that we find to encourage people is part and parcel of the sunnah of the Quran, and likewise the way of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well. That you find that the ayat in the Quran, bayna targheeb wa tarheeb, are between encouraging you to do something, and at the same time tarheeb, telling you to stay away from something. You find the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala between bashir wa nadhir, between giving you glad tidings and warning you about certain instances or to stay away from certain actions. Likewise, you find bayna wa'dun wa wa'id, between a promise and a stern chastisement that could be individual could be exposed towards. That is the sunnah of the Quran. And thus you find on many occasions that we focus on the good things. That people like to hear about the good things. What is inside paradise, what will be given to us, the blessings that you find inside paradise, all of these aspects that many people want to work and focus towards. And likewise the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was highlighted as many ayat inside the Quran. Ya ayyuhan nabiyyu inna arsalnaka shahidan wa mubashiran wa nadhira. We have sent you, O Prophet of Allah, as a witness, and at the same time bashiran wa nadhira, one who warns and one who gives people the glad tidings. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا كَافَةً لِلنَّاسِ بَشِيرًا وَنَذِيرًا وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. We did not send you to the whole of humanity except for to warn them and to give them the glad tidings or the blessings. وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. But indeed many of mankind don't have an understanding or have knowledge about this. Likewise we find إِنَّا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ بِالْحَقِّ بَشِيرًا وَنَذِيرًا. We did send you with the truth, with reality, with the Quran, and we sent you as a warner and one to give glad tidings as well. And thus you find that this concept of running in pairs, as we began with targheeb and tarheeb. وَمِن كُلِّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقْنَا زَوْجَيْنِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَذَكَّرُونَ. Everything we've created in pairs, that you may pay heed towards the concept of pairs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. Now the pairs that we want to focus on one side of that pair, is the concept of al-Jannah wal-Nar. As you find in the hadith, that Jannah is haqq, wal-Naru haqq. That paradise is a reality, and likewise hellfire is a reality as well. And so as I mentioned, many of us begin to sway towards the concept of studying about paradise, because naturally a person needs to have a yearning desire to enter into paradise, to know about the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. And as the ulama talk about the ayat which talk about al-Na'im, talk about paradise, that the asma are exactly the same as the names that we live on a daily basis. As for the reality, they're totally different. So the fruits, the drinks, al-anhar, min laban, or min asal, or anhar min khamr, the rivers of wine, of alcohol, pure alcohol, sharab al-tahura, mind you, in that day in paradise. The concept of water, milk, pure honey. These are all names that we can relate to. And likewise the fruits that have been mentioned and the vegetables, etc. Wal-ashjar, wal-anhar, the rivers, the trees. It's so that insan can relate to this concept. As for its essence or its entity, is totally different between this dunya and the akhirah. But just to bridge that gap, and that's why many ulama, they talk about, they write about, and in Tasweerul Fanni, write about to describe the Quran as if you can visualize it. Many ulama collected those ayat. And that's why you find that the Quran has this deep nature that many of us can't seem to understand. We tend to skim read over the Quran. But the Quran has a science, if you study in the science of ulum al-Quran, talking about the Quran making tashbih, or making tamthil, making similarities between things of this dunya and things of the akhirah. For example, many of the ayat which talk about sending down of the rain from the heavens, فَاخْتَلَطَ بِهِ نَبَاتُ الْأَرْضِ, and it mixes with the earth, and then you find that the vegetation begins to grow. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the parable of this dunya. And this is the concept of this dunya, that you find the vegetation, it grows, and then you find that it stems, it flows, and then it begins to wither away. And that's the dunya. And the dunya is just an allurement, a beautification of a short span of time. As you find in the verse, if I'm not mistaken, inside Surah Yunus, was zayyinat, that the earth becomes alluring. And the ulama talk about was zayyinat yusta'mal lil-urusa, is used for a bridegroom, that she beautifies herself for that one day. And after a short while, the beauty begins to disappear. And as you find as a side point, a woman is married for 4 things. Either for her deen, her lineage, her honor, or her beauty. All of these will go away. Her wealth, her honor, her family lineage, and her beauty as well. فَاظْفَرْ بِذَاتِ الدِّينِ تَرِبَتْ يَدَاكَ. Seek the woman of religious nature, and you will be blessed. You'll find blessings inside your hand, meaning the contract that you entered into. But here this verse or this word talking about was zayyinat. Once again it shows that it reaches a point of beauty, the land, and it begins to wither away. Has no value at all. And likewise it's the dunya. That you are attracted to the dunya, but after a short while it will be taken away from you. And nothing will go with the individual except for the a'mal, their righteous actions, which all of us inshallah through this month of Ramadan are trying to build upon, to gain the maximum benefit in this month of Ramadan. To create that concept of لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, that you may be pious individuals. Because as you find that taqwa is none other as a shield between you and the hellfire. As-sawmu junnah. As you find the hadith, the fasting is a shield that will protect you from falling into the hellfire. And that's what we want to discuss today, is how can an individual, when he save themselves from the hellfire, or go into a descriptive nature of what is this creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, at certain stages I mentioned, we do need to highlight the good things as well. But here, alhamdulillah, all of us being Muslims, at times we need to remind people the fearful things as well. That if you do such and such action, this could be your evil ending. Or this could be the ending of such an individual. That does not mean that we send someone to the hellfire, or we throw someone into paradise. That's not the role of any preacher or any individual. Even though some individuals may think that they have some label to go and label people, you are people of the hellfire and you are people of paradise. The way of the da'i is only to highlight, to give that yearning, that inclination that people yearn. Either the mushtaquna ila al-jannah, a yearning desire to make it to paradise, and a strong commitment to stay away from the hellfire. فَمَنْ زُحْزِهَ عَنِ النَّارِ وَأُدْخِلَ الْجَنَّةِ فَقَدْ فَازَ وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. Whoever is plucked out of the hellfire and thrown into paradise, فَقَدْ فَازَ, that is a successful individual. And then once again, as I began with, talking about this dunya, وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. The whole, this world is one great big deception. That's all that this dunya is. It will deceive you. It is nothing but the trickery, talbis, iblis, the deception of the devil. Everything in this dunya has no value in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no matter how much people promote the dunya. Even though, yes, you do need to seek the dunya for your welfare, for your family, for your children, and to have a good sustenance of living. But the real point of a mu'min is the dunya is in your hand, never enters into your heart. The day the dunya enters into your heart, then you may as well say salam upon yourself, which has happened to many individuals. And when that dunya goes straight into your heart, and everything in your life becomes the yearning of the dunya, then you may as well read your own funeral prayer upon yourself. That's why when Imam Ahmad was asked, can a person be rich and be a conscious and muttaqi as well at the same time? And he stated, there's nothing wrong with a person being rich and having a consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's only once again when the dunya begins to trickle into your heart and take over all of your affairs. And that's you find when many people talk about the concept of that shirk is rampant amongst the Muslim land, that's true. وَمَا يُؤْمِنُ أَكْثَرُهُم بِاللَّهِ إِلَّا وَهُمْ مُشْرِكُونَ. Many of them believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they commit shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's what you find, but at the same time, those people who do not indulge in grave worship or calling upon the awliya, that does not mean that we don't believe in the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We do believe in them. أَلَا إِنَّ أَوْلِيَاءَ اللَّهِ لَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَكَانُوا يَتَّقُونَ. That's the criteria. Who believe and have taqwa. A person who clings to the sharia will become a wali. That's why Ibn Taymiyyah, he highlights that every single individual, every single mu'min, فَهُوَ wali. Is a wali if they stick to the sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Stick to the halal and stay away from the haram, all of us become awliya Allah. And thus you find that this concept of being close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being the pious individuals, of seeking to get closer and closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the way of every single mu'min to protect themselves from not falling into the punishment. And thus you find that the Quran inside Surah Al-Tahrim, it highlights, why should a person not seek to protect themselves from the punishment of the hellfire? For example, you find, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارًا. Oh, you believe, save yourselves and your families from the hellfire. Many of us forget this concept of saving ourselves and our families from the hellfire. Because many of us are currently following a pattern of academia, that religion has become an academic study for us. That's not what Deenul Islam is. Deen Islam is a powerful form of tazkiyatun nafs, purifying the soul, taking you out of the dhulumat ila nur, taking you out of the realms of darknesses to the light. Making tasfiyah with tazkiyah of the qalb is an integral part of the sharia to purify oneself. So many of us in our zeal to worry about other individuals or to other groups or other people, other societies, we fail our own selves. We forget our own selves and we forget our own intermediate family and individuals around us. قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارًا. Save yourselves and your family from the fuel, from the hellfire, whose fuel is none other than men and stones. Upon it is angels who are stern and harsh, guarding over this hellfire. لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم ويفعلون ما يؤمرون. They never ever disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are forever carrying out the commands that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lays down upon them. And thus you find that many of us unfortunately will become the losers. You find in the Quran, قُلْ إِنَّ الْخَاسِرِينَ الَّذِينَ خَسِرُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ وَأَهْلِيهِمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَلَا ذَلِكَ هُوَ الْخُسْرَانُ الْمُبِينُ. So indeed on that day, those are the real losers on that day will be who lose themselves and lose their families. How can a person lose their own self and lose their family? Meaning you don't focus upon your own self. You don't focus upon your family. The Muslim Ummah is made from the nucleus of the Muslim Ummah. When a Muslim family is corrupt, and you can see that how many Muslim families unfortunately are corrupt. The mass amount of divorce amongst Muslims, or even amongst so-called practicing Muslims, unwanted children, abortions, al-fawahish, spreading amongst Muslims, and amongst non-Muslims is common at the moment, unfortunately. And that shows the smaller picture of the greater picture of the state of the Muslims. Amongst the characteristics of Ibadur Rahman, returning back to the topic, why shouldn't we seek to protect ourselves from the punishment of the hellfire? وَالَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا اصْرِفْ عَنَّا عَذَابَ جَهَنَّمَ. They are the ones that pray, take us away from the punishment of Jahannam. إِنَّ عَذَابَهَا كَانَ غَرَامًا. Indeed, the punishment of the hellfire is something which is a grievous penalty, a stern chastisement or punishment. إِنَّهَا سَأَتْ مُسْتَقَرًّا وَمُقَامًا. Indeed, this is something, an evil abode and an evil resting place. So these are, if you want to study the ayat of Ibadur Rahman, read the end of Surah Al-Furqan. In Surah Al-Furqan, the 25th chapter of the Quran, you will find the sifat of Ibadur Rahman. And this is their prayer. They are the individuals who pray, رَبَّنَا اصْرِفْ عَنَّا عَذَابَ Jahannam. Take us away from the punishment of Jahannam. That's Ibadur Rahman, the servants of Ar-Rahman. Likewise, another location you find addressing the characteristics of the believers, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ مِنْ عَذَابِ رَبِّهِمْ مُشْفِقُونَ. Those are the ones who fear the punishment of their Lord. إِنَّ عَذَابَ رَبِّهِمْ غَيْرُ مَأْمُونَ. Indeed, the punishment of the Lord is something that one should not feel secure from. You should not become relentless and think that it's only the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not a great thing. Indeed, it is something, an evil chastisement or an evil punishment. Likewise, you find amongst the prayers of the believers, رَبَّنَا إِنَّكَ مَنْ تُدْخِلِ النَّارِ فَقَدْ أَخْزَيْتَ وَمَا لِلظَّالِمِينَ مِنْ أَنصَارٍ. Our Lord, whoever you throw into the hellfire, فَقَدْ أَخْزَيْتَهُ, you've disgraced that individual. That's what's happened. Whoever is thrown into Jahannam is disgraced by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So every single Muslim should be striving the utmost how to not disgrace themselves. Whether it be in this dunya and the akhirah as well, even the real disgrace is inside the akhirah. When a person will be thrown into the hellfire in a state of any disgrace in front of every single individual. And thus you find many of the companions, they said these words, and many of the ulama came at a later stage and said these famous words, that whoever does not know any good from bad will one day fall into the bad. Meaning that every single mu'min needs to know this. And if I'm not mistaken, from the riwayah talking about Hudayfa radiallahu ta'ala anhu, that people used to ask about the good. And I used to ask the Prophet about the shar, about the evil. Lest that I don't fall into it one day and I could inform other individuals as well. So the mu'min doesn't just know the good things, knows the bad things as well. That doesn't mean that you need to taste the bad things or enter into muharramat. But your skill and your science of knowing the evil things will create a shield for you. That this is something dangerous and I need to stay away from this evil action. And likewise you find that knowledge will hopefully gain the individual by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to abstain from a certain sin or to abstain from the punishment of hellfire. That's what ilm does. That's what really ilm is. Al-ilmu khashyatullah. Ilm is the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what real knowledge is. The thamaratul ilm, the fruits of knowledge, is that you begin to become more and more conscious. That's why you find amongst the meanings of the muttaqi, as highlighted by Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu. The muttaqi is the one, he said, have you seen a one who treads upon a thorn-infested path? How do you tread upon that path? How do you walk upon a path which is covered with thorns? And initially you find the individual treads upon that path by making sure they don't step on the thorn, lest a thorn may prick them at the end of the bottom of their foot. That is the way, that is the way of a pious individual. That in this dunya you are careful of where you tread. That's why you find many ulama, the salaf, they write that the muttaqi is the one who fears things that most people don't fear. Most people don't fear about these things. They don't look at these things. They don't even worry about them. They don't pay attention to them. But the muttaqi is the one who always thinks, that is this something of the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or will it earn the displeasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What is my goal, my purpose in doing this action? What do I want to attain from this? Will it bring me, هل يقربني إلى الله سبحانه وتعالى? Will it bring me closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or will it take me far away? That's what you find if you read the works of Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali, في جوامع العلوم والحكم, whereby he explains these 50 ahadith or 52 ahadith of Prophet Muhammad, you find great fawaid, whereby the Shaykh talks about az-zuhud, about abstinence, talks about such ahadith about taqwa, about consciousness. And the muttaqi is the one that gives up so many things that common people don't give them up, just to get that extra edge to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's what all of us should aspiring to be. Don't just be content in being just a simple Muslim or being a simple mu'min. Every single Muslim and mu'min should strive to become a muttaqi, one who is close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the striving that you do in the dunya. You want to hit the benchmark. You want to attain the ultimate closeness to the things of the dunya. So why, when it comes to the deen, you just brush things aside? Well, I'll just about make it to paradise. I'll just scrape through to paradise. Somehow I'll enter there. Somehow someone will intercede for me. Somehow someone in my family reads the Quran, they will call out my name. Or maybe the Prophet Muhammad will call out to me. Why do you hold fast to such a belief? I'm a Muslim by name, my father is a good father, and I'll make it to paradise. This is nothing but a concept of Deen al-Nasara, a concept of Christian understanding of the deen. وَلَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةٌ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى. No soul will carry the sin of another soul. Your father won't carry your sins, nor will your father be able to intercede for you if it's not been destined. If you have lived an immoral life, an evil life, and then you expect other people to make shafa'ah for you, to intercede for you. That's the ill understanding of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every single individual will be brought forth according to their own actions, laid out in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then if it's been destined for you, the people will intercede for you. But don't rely upon intercession and think that is the whole of my life. Someone will intercede for me and I'll make it to paradise. So this knowledge of the hellfire will help the individual to stay away from the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Firstly, we find, obviously this topic is vast, but we'll try to condense it on a few points inshallah and bring it together. Firstly, you find the creation of Jahannam. Because many people, especially modern day Muslims, or tajaddudiyya, that you find modernism amongst many Muslims, They even write in their works what they claim to be tafasir, that Jannah is just a figment of the mind. It's just a perception of the mind. It doesn't really exist. And likewise, paradise, hellfire is just a location. There's no real concept of punishment. You people are just trying to scare people, trying to create this figment of the mind that there is a concept of paradise and there is a concept of the hellfire. You'll be surprised, many current day so-called ulama, intellectuals have written, mufakkirun have talked about such things amongst the Muslims, that they begin to deny the concept of paradise and hellfire. That's a dangerous view to hold, because then that means you can do whatever you want to do. There'll be no reward in the akhirah for people who've been good individuals. أَفَنَجْعَلُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ كَالْمُجْرِمِينَ مَا لَكُمْ كَيْفَ تَحْكُمُونَ? Are we going to make good people like the criminals? How do you judge? So there has to be a day of recompense. The good people will be given their justification and their reward, and likewise these mujrimeen, these fusaq, these evil and rebellious individuals, they'll be given their fair share of the punishment by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's the whole concept of your a'mal. Your actions become null and void. Why are you doing good actions then? What is the point if you're not going to be rewarded with anything? And what is the point in staying away from bad things if there's going to be no punishment? I may as well just be an average and an individual just like the rest of humanity. So you find in the Quran various ayat which talk about the creation of the hellfire. وَاتَّقُوا النَّارَ الَّتِي عِدَّتْ لِلْكَافِرِينَ. Fear the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fear the fire, عِدَّتْ لِلْكَافِرِينَ, which has been prepared. And here he focuses on the word عِدَّتْ, already prepared, has been created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِنَّ جَهَنَّمَ كَانَتْ مِرْصَادًا لِلطَّاغِينَ مَآبًا. Indeed, Jahannam has been lying in wait, meaning it's already been created as a preparation for the transgressors, or destination for the transgressing individuals. Likewise, many ahadith you find, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the paradise and created hellfire, here you find when, yani in the past tense, that it's already been created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Jibreel alayhi salam, and you recall the famous hadith in Muslim, to go and look at paradise. And whereby you find Jibreel alayhi salam highlight, whoever sees paradise will want to enter into paradise. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that cover it with shubahat, with shahawat, cover it with doubts and desires, make it difficult to enter into paradise. And likewise for Jahannam, whoever sees it, he will abstain from it instantly, and cover that with allurement, cover that with good things, that people are led towards it to some degree. So thus you find it becomes difficult to make it to paradise. So when people think that paradise is easy to go to paradise, yes, it is easy if you follow the correct path of paradise. So it is difficult, but at the same time it's easy if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it easy for you. As for the other paths, they will take you to the path of Jahannam. That's what people say, this is a shortcut to paradise. This is a quick ticket to paradise. There is no quick ticket to paradise. Apart from there is no other quick ticket to paradise. وَأَنَّ هَذَا صِرَاطِي مُسْتَقِيمًا فَاتَّبِعُوهُ. Know that this is the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's a long path. Don't follow the other paths. In the hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, the Prophet drew a long khat, a long line. And on the end of the other lines, he drew short lines. At the end of them, he said, these are the short paths. At the end of these short paths is nothing but a devil waiting at the end of it. This is a long path, a long trek, a long journey till eventually you make it to paradise. And that is the way of the mu'min. The mu'min is on that long path. Don't ever fall trapped to the short paths, what people will call to, what humanity will call towards. Remain and focus on that long path, and eventually you'll make that path. That is manhajul anbiya, that is the way, the methodology of the anbiya, the prophets. That they were shaken in that path. They were traumatized. They were killed. They were slain. They were tortured. They were persecuted. Until you find that even in the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, you find hatta zulzilu, until there were earthquakes came underneath. They were shaken from underneath, shaken by the calamity that's coming upon them. And even the Prophet was shaken himself. And he stated, Mata Nasrullah, when will the victory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala come? Ala inna Nasrullahi qareeb. Indeed, the victory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very, very close. Only the mu'min can see that. Only some of the young shabab see the short path and say this must be a path to victory. The path to victory is a long path, a very, very long path. Let no one dream that the victory will come in a day, or in a few months, or in a year. That victory may come after. Don't ever think that world politics at the moment, that Islam is on its way down, is on a slump, is on a downhill. Hold that fast inside your heart, because that's aqidatul mu'min. That is the aqeedah of the mu'min, that Islam is a victorious deen. It will be a deen of ghalaba. وَالَّذِي أَرْسَلَ رَسُولَهُ بِالْهُدَى وَدِينِ الْحَقِّ لِيُظْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ. That's not a dream, that's a fact. That's a fact that every Muslim should believe deep down inside their heart, whether you see that victory in front of you or you don't. And thus you find that the Prophet had that vision, and he was shown certain ajaib, certain strange things. But to give him that conviction, he saw paradise and he saw the hellfire. In a famous hadith that you find, that he went forward to grasp something. Another hadith, or in the same hadith, he stood back, or he took a step back. The companions asked, you've done a certain action you never done before inside the salah. He said, as for my going forward, then I saw a bunch of the fruits of paradise. I went forward to grasp it. As for my going back, it was a strand of the hellfire being pushed towards me, and I moved back to avoid that strand of the hellfire. And if you knew what I knew, لَدَحِكْتُمْ قَلِيلًا وَلَبَكَيْتُمْ كَثِيرًا. If you knew what I knew, you would laugh seldom. You would rarely laugh in your lives. وَلَبَكَيْتُمْ كَثِيرًا. You would weep often. Because the Prophet saw paradise, and he saw the hellfire. And as his yaqeen entered such a great dimension, in a totally different level that we can't even perceive. People talk about love of the Prophet Muhammad, their great immense love. That love was what the companions had of him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as you find, that love of the Prophet Muhammad is ittiba'. Ittiba' al-Rasul. Laysa ibtida'u fi ad-din. Love of the Prophet Muhammad means to follow closely every single thing that he done in his life. Not to innovate. Not to make up your own deen. And just to say, my love and my emotional love, I do this action for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's not deen. Deen is that true love. That true ittiba' forever in your life, to emulate and to copy the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in everything that he done. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq and ability to do that. In our weeping, in our crying, in our laughing, in our walking, in our talking, in our sleeping, everything. Because wallahi nahnu qasirin. Externally we may think we fit the sunnah. But aqsimu billah, if you knew our internal state, you'd think this person got nothing to do with sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that's the real loving that you should have within your heart. That everything within me, my sabr, my patience, my anger, my control, my weeping, everything is as close to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. My khuluq, everything about me is to be just like the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as you find the creed of Ahl Sunnah, as you find in the works of Aqidah al-Tahawiyah, that Jahannam has already been created. There's no debate amongst the classical ulama about this. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already created the hellfire, as highlighted in the works of Ibn Abdul Aziz al-Hanafi. Only you find a certain individual begin to talk about amongst the Mu'tazila wal Qadariyah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will create Jahannam on the day of resurrection. It's not been created, it will be created at a later stage, and this only leads to rejection of many ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But moving swiftly into Asma'u Jahannam. The names of Jahannam that you find, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has highlighted some 7 different major names that you find. Among these names that you find, Inna Jahannama kanat mirsada, is firstly the name Jahannam itself. That Jahannam has been created lying in wait for the oppressive individuals. Kalla innaha ladha nazza'atin lishawa. Ladha is another name of Jahannam. This thing, what will do, Jahannam, it will, nazza'atin lishawa, will burn straight into the skull. That's how powerful Jahannam is. The third name that you find, Kalla la yumbadanna fil hutama. We will throw the individual into al-hutama. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْحُطَمَا نَارُ اللَّهِ الْمُوقَدَةِ الَّتِي تَطَّلِعُ عَلَى الْأَفْئِدَةِ. You find that al-hutama is what will, the fire, the burning fire, the crushing fire. This fire will penetrate all the way into the hearts of human beings. So it doesn't just burn the external parts of the body. It will burn right all the way into the internal organs of the individual. The fourth name that you find, فَرِيقٌ فِي الْجَنَّةِ وَفَرِيقٌ فِي السَّعِيرِ. A group that will be inside paradise, in the bliss, in the abode. وَفَرِيقٌ فِي السَّعِيرِ. And a group that will be inside the evil punishment is the fourth name. The fifth name that you find, سَأُصْلِيهِ سَقَرْ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا سَقَرْ لَا تُبْقِي وَلَا تَذَرْ. What will explain to you what is Saqar min Asma'i Jahannam. What is Saqar? The Saqar that you find in Asma'i Jahannam is La tubqi wa la tadhar. Leaves nothing, endures nothing. It burns everything. It will burn over anything that comes in front of it. And then you find Lawahatul lil bashar, will even change the color of human beings. Change the textural skin of the human being. And then you find the sixth name, وَبُرِّزَتِ الْجَحِيمُ لِلْغَاوِينَ. And Jahim has been prepared for the Ghaween, for the evil, straying in evil individuals. The fifth name that you find, وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَفَّتْ مَوَازِينُهُ فَأُمُّهُ هَاوِيَةٌ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا هِيَ نَارٌ حَامِيَةٌ. The relentless or the bottomless pit. Hawiyah. It has no ending. That is the seventh name that you find of Jahannam. Now some of the books amongst the ulama, they highlight these are the stages of Jahannam. They say the first stage is Jahannam. ثُمَّ لَظَى ثُمَّ حُطَمَ ثُمَّ سَعِيرٌ ثُمَّ سَقَرٌ ثُمَّ الْجَحِيمُ ثُمَّ هَاوِيَةٌ. These are the 7 stages of Jahannam that you find. However, the ulama of Ahlul Sunnah have highlighted there's no real proof of these 7 divisions. Even though some of the ulama in their works have collected this, that these are the 7 stages, beginning with Jahannam and then falling down all the way to the bottomless pit. What is the location of Jahannam? Because many people talk about where is the location. Is the location of Jahannam the lower earth? Is it underneath the ground? Is it in the heavens? Or should a mu'min abstain from its exact location? Imam Suyuti highlights that the location of Jahannam is unknown to humanity, and that is the safest opinion to take. So Imam Suyuti said that the location should be refrain. Then you come to the gates of Jahannam. The gates of Jahannam that you find, that even before you come to the gates of Jahannam, you find the sparks. The sparks of Jahannam being thrown out. إِنَّهَا تَرْمِي بِشَرَرٍ كَالْقَصَرٍ كَأَنَّهُ جِمَالَةٌ صُفْرٌ. Where you find the sparks which are coming out of Jahannam are like the yellow camels. So you can imagine the size of a spark. So before you even come to the gates, you find these sparks of Jahannam are being thrown out from Jahannam for individuals to see. Then when you come to the gates of Jahannam, وَإِنَّ جَهَنَّمَ لَمَوْعِدُهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ لَهَا سَبْعَةُ أَبْوَابٍ لِكُلِّ بَابٍ مِّنْهُمْ جُزْءٌ مَقْصُورٌ. When you come to the gates of Jahannam, you find every single group, يَلِي لَمَوْعِدُهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. That is the meeting point of all of these individuals. لَهَا سَبْعَةُ أَبْوَابٍ. Jahannam has 7 gates. And every single gate will have its fair share of specific individuals who committed their sins that will go into any Jahannam. And thus you can find that some people who talk about the 7 deadly sins, which even the Bible talks about the 7 deadly sins. And even in Islam, there is a concept of 7 deadly sins, but far beyond that, because al-kaba'ir are many. As Imam al-Dhahabi highlights, some 90 in number that you find. But those 7 deadly sins, that's how some people talk about each gate will be for each deadly sin that you find. Ibn Kathir also highlights his view as well, that each gate will have its fair share of allotted individuals who enter into it. And likewise you find, its fair share of followers of Iblis will enter into each and every single gate. And you find one after another, the first group and the second group, until all of the gates are full. When they arrive, you find the gates will be swung open. And you know permission, because you find that you look at these ayat inside Surah Zumar. There's one harf that you find, harf wa or fa? You find that وَسِيقَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا إِلَى جَهَنَّمَ زُمَرًا حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءُوهَا فُتِحَتْ أَبْوَابُهَا. For the people of Jahannam, the doors are swung open straight away. Because you find, when you look at the opposite ayat which talk about the believers, you find the concept istiqbal, a preparation, and then the doors of Jannah paradise are slowly swung open for them. As a form of istiqbal, reception. That's a normal etiquette you find in the dunya. Of a reception that you give. As for the reception of people of Jahannam, the doors are just flung open and thrown into Jahannam. There's no reception for such individuals. Just that simple word, futihat abwabuha. There's just that simple harf, shows the deep nature of the Arabic language and the deep nature of the Quran. Shows that what will happen to these individuals. But unfortunately many of us don't even reflect upon these simple huruf. Even there's no concept of simple huruf in the Quran. Because every single verse has a daqiq meaning, an accurate and a precise meaning to benefit every single individual. وَقَالَ لَهُمْ خَزَنَتُهَا أَلَمْ يَأْتِيكُمْ رُسُلٌ مِّنْكُمْ. And it was the people who are taking control, or the keepers, the gatekeepers of Jahannam, would say, did not a warner come to you? Did not someone come to you and warn you about this punishment and tell you to stay away from it? Recite the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَيُنذِرُونَكُمْ لِقَاءِ يَوْمِكُمْ هَذَا, and warn you about this day. قَالُوا بَلَى وَلَكِنْ حَقَّتْ قَلِمَةُ الْعَذَابِ عَلَى الْكَافِرِينَ. But it has been destined for the individuals, for the disbelievers, to be entering into this evil punishment of the hellfire, the torment for them. And after they admit it, they will be told, قِيلَ ادْخُلُوا أَبْوَابَ جَهَنَّمَ خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا فَبِئْسَ مَثْوَى الْمُتَكَبِّرِينَ. We say to them, enter into Jahannam. This is the abode of the people of mutakabbirin, arrogant individuals. You know, arrogance is a sin that is so rampant amongst Muslims. Whether it be practicing Muslims, or whether it be the average Muslim. People who feel that they found the Sharia are arrogant towards other individuals. What is arrogance? Is arrogance wearing good clothing, dressing well, eating well, riding well? What is arrogance? Al-kibr, batarul haq wa ghamtun nas. Arrogance is to reject the truth. Someone tells you the truth, you reject it. That's what arrogance is. Someone tells you something from the Quran, from the Sunnah of the Prophet, you reject it. You're arrogant because he doesn't belong from me. He doesn't belong to my group. He doesn't belong to my entity. Why should I accept it from this individual? And the second disease that you find, وَغَمْطُ النَّاسِ, to despise people, to look down upon. And that you find indirect ayat as well, talking about coming to the gates of Jahannam. وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِآيَاتِنَا هُمْ أَصْحَابُ الْمَشْأَمَةِ عَلَيْهِمْ نَارٌ مُؤْصَدَةٌ. People reject our signs. Those individuals are the unhappy companions of the left hand. On them will be the fire vaulted over all around them. If you read the tafsir of Ibn Abbas, he talks about the concept of mu'sada. Mu'sada means to be shut over them, to close over them. This is the concept of the gates, indirectly. That once you enter, then the gates will be closed upon you. You will be sealed inside this area. And likewise, you find amongst the dialect of the Quraysh, is highlighted by Imam Mujahid, it means to be locked or to be shut. And the only thing that can be locked or shut is a gate. Is an indirect verse talking about the concept of the gates created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And likewise, you find other ayat talking about the concept of the gates, as Ibn Rajab highlights, takhweef min an-nar. Who is standing over the gates of Jahannam? You find amongst the individuals that stand over the gates of Jahannam, وَقَالَ لَهُمْ خَزَنَتُهَا, the keepers, the guardians of the hellfire, which they will say to the people who have entered into Jahannam. وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ فِي النَّارِ لِخَزَنَةِ جَهَنَّمْ ادْعُوا رَبَّكُمْ يُخَفِّفْ عَنَّا يَوْمًا مِنَ الْعَذَابِ. It will be said to the people, they will say to the keeper of Jahannam, they pray for us, give us an opportunity that some of the punishment is alleviated for us. That the punishment of Jahannam is taken away from us. Lessen the punishment of Jahannam upon us. There's no concept of lessening the punishment of Jahannam for an individual once they've entered into this punishment. Because the keepers are stern and harsh. The keepers over Jahannam are none other than the Malaika. عَلَيْهَا تِسْعَةَ عَشَرٍ. Upon it is 19 angels. Now a person may think, what is 19 angels? Wallah, if you read the works of tafsir, even the Quraysh said, if it's 19 angels, then we're going to go with our weapons and our swords and we'll fight them. Read the works of tafsir. That's when عَلَيْهَا تِسْعَةَ عَشَرٍ said, if it's only 19, then we'll fight 19 angels. But you're thinking about your worldly things, about your concept of it's only 19 individuals. The angels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are not like the angels of things of dunya that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. The size and the magnitude of the angels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one cannot encompass them. The angels that carry the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the size and the nature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا جَعَلْنَا عِدَّتَهُمْ إِلَّا فِتْنَةً لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. If you read these ayat, you read the tafsir of these ayat. And as you find, Ibn Rajab highlights that humankind will not even in its own complete entirety, will not be able to resist one angel. So all of the human beings fight against one angel, they cannot overcome one angel of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How Ibn Rajab highlights this in his works at takhweef min an-nar. The main gatekeeper that you find of Jahannam, وَنَادَوْا يَا مَالِكْ لِيَقْضِيَ عَلَيْنَا رَبُّكَ قَالَ إِنَّكُمْ مَاكِثُونَ. The main angel is Malik. He is the custodian of Jahannam. And they will ask Malik once again, that bring death upon us. قَالَ إِنَّكُمْ مَاكِثُونَ. Nay, indeed you will reside inside Jahannam forever. And as you find that Malik, the Prophet Muhammad saw Malik when he travelled upon that the journey of Al-Isra wal-Mi'raj. As for the vast extent of Jahannam, hell is huge and immensely deep. وَجِيءَ يَوْمَئِذٍ بِجَهَنَّمْ. On that day when Jahannam will be brought forth. And there's only a few hadiths which can explain the size and extent of Jahannam. Hell will be brought forth that day by means of 70,000 ropes, each of which will be held by 70,000 angels in the hadith ma rawahu Imam Muslim. So Jahannam will be pulled by 70,000 angels, by 70,000 ropes, and on each rope will be 70,000 angels pulling that rope. We'll show you that this hadith ma rawahu Imam Muslim fi sahihi. is in the Sahih of Imam Muslim to show you the vast extent or the depth of Jahannam or the size of Jahannam. It is like a mill which grinds the grain, as some ulama have highlighted. The more the wheat that you throw inside it, the barley just grinds it continuously. That's what Jahannam is. It's a mill that continuously grinds more and more and makes more space for people to enter into it. And then you find يَوْمَ نَقُولُ لِجَهَنَّمْ هَلِ امْتَلَأْتِ وَتَقُولُ هَلْ مِن مَزِيدٍ. And we said to Jahannam, is it sufficient? Are you full? Jahannam will say, هَلْ مِن مَزِيدٍ, is there more? Let more come to be entered inside there. And as you find it, remember, there will be millions of creation, if not billions, that will enter into it. Even amongst the greatest creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is none other than the sun and the moon. The sun is a great star, far outweighs, or the outside of it, of all of the stars of the planet, or all of the planets that you find. The sun and the moon will both be rolled up like a bull and thrown into Jahannam. Just like a small ball and thrown into Jahannam. That shows the vast size of Jahannam. This hadith has been checked by late Shaykh Nasiruddin Al-Albani rahmatullahi alayhi. Likewise, you find we were with the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam and we heard the sound of something falling. Something falling and landed on the bottom. The Prophet Muhammad said to him, do you know what that was? He said, Allah wa Rasuluhu a'lam. He said, that was a stone that was thrown into hell 70 years ago, and it was falling through hell until it landed in hell. Right now you heard that sound. Al-Hadith ma rawahu Imam Muslim. Likewise, you find even the following verses talk about the size or the depth of the hellfire. In al-munafiqina fi ad-darki asfali min an-nar. Indeed, the hypocrites will be in the lowest depth of the hellfire. That shows the size of Jahannam. Likewise, we mentioned previously, for ummuhu hawiya, hellfire is none other than the bottomless pit. As for the intensity of its heat, even though hellfire is such a great depth down, the heat can be visualized, the heat can be felt. That's how hot the heat of Jahannam is. It is not an ordinary fire. You find your fire is one of the 70 portions of the hellfire. Would it not be sufficient to burn human beings with one portion of the hellfire? Because no individual can place their hand on the fire. Because the fire of this dunya is sufficient to burn an individual. But yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the hellfire has been created from 69 more portions than the ordinary fire, worldly fire, and all of them are as hot as this worldly fire. Al-Hadith ma rawahu Imam Bukhari. So 70 more times hotter than the hottest fire in this world. And as you find many Quranic descriptions that you find, وَعَدَّ لَهُمْ سَعِيرًا وَيَصْلَى سَعِيرًا نَارٌ حَامِيَةٌ نَارٌ تَلَظَّى. All these ayat. And as you find in Salatul Taraweeh, you find that is, a person should be asking to abstain, to protect oneself from the hellfire. Unfortunately, many of us, we don't understand the Quran. Bil asr. The Quran is not just about a melodious voice. Even the melodious voice means a lot. It creates raghbah within you. In the hadith of, in my memory certainly correct, the state of Abu Dawood, whoever doesn't sing or recite the Quran in a melodious voice has got nothing to do with us. But not everybody's been God gifted with a melodious voice. But the real message of the Quran needs to be focused upon. The ayat of zajr, the ayat of warning, the ayat of adab. How many of us understand those ayat? How many of the Quran focus upon those ayat? That you find them that they begin to weep. You know that you are now traveling through Jahannam. But yet you find a constant speed in saying the ayat of Jahannam, the ayat of Jannah, just to get the prayer completed. That's not Salatul Taraweeh. Salatul Taraweeh is a long qiyam, a long standing, a long tadabbur, a long reflection. People go around searching for who will read it the fastest. Who will go into top gear and read it the fastest. That's what the elderly individuals say, mashallah, he recites well, but his speed is not good enough. He's got to recite faster. That's what happens in all of our local mashallah. Every time you talk to them, they say, mashallah, great qari, great reciter, great young shabab who come learn the Quran. But you know, they don't read fast enough. They've got to go into the 5th gear. We want to go home. But Taraweeh, in the ulama, is only a sunnah. It's just recommended. It's highly recommended to enter it. So a person should come there with that intention that the Imam should belong. The one who should be the Imam should be the most proficient in the Quran and in understanding the Quran and know about these ayat. You know the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he said to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, I know I like to go off the topic a lot, but that's just my nature. That's the nature of insan. Abdullah fihi fawaid inshallah. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, the Prophet Muhammad called him and said to him, listen, read the Quran to me. Iqra alayya. Shay'un ajib. How can the Prophet Muhammad say to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, read upon me? Aqra'u alayk. وَقَدْ أُنزِلَ عَلَيْكَ, I read upon you, the Quran set down upon you. He said, I want to hear it from other than myself. I want to hear it from other than myself. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud begins to recite from Surah An-Nisa. Begins to recite until he comes up to, my memory serves me right, until verse number 72. How will it be on that day when we bring you as a witness over them? وَجِئْنَاكَ عَلَى هَؤُلَاءِ الشَّهِيدًا. The Prophet ﷺ said, sufficient, sufficient. Enough, enough. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said, I looked up at the blessed face of the Prophet ﷺ and I saw tears in his eyes. I saw him weeping. Tasawwur hada, this is the Prophet Muhammad, a great man. There's nobody who can compete with a man under the Prophet Muhammad. Yeah, he's weeping at the Quran. Another hadith that you find, I read recently, hadith to be checked and made authentic as well, whereby you find that people are gathered together. And his cluster and his gathering attracted the attention of the Prophet Muhammad. And he walked out to me and said, what are you doing? And he said, we're digging this grave of this individual to bury him. The Prophet Muhammad began to participate. And then he said, oh my brothers, oh my ikhwan, this is where you are going. This is the ending place of you. And he wept so much that his tears dropped down on the earth and they became mud. That's how much he cried, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. That's his conviction for his people. Ya ikhwani, you're going to come to this destination as well. That's what he calls spirituality. How the Prophet Muhammad moved his people. Moved them to come. That's all the Quran and the Hadith is. To move you to come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. To return back, to be with him one day. To be upon those people who trod upon his path. Not be those individuals on the day of judgment. That many of the ummah will come. And Jibreel alayhi salam will stop them. He will stop them. He'll say, Ummati, Ummati, my people, let them come to me, let them drink from the fountain. Whoever drinks from Al-Kawthar, whoever drinks from that river will never feel thirsty ever again. Jibreel alayhi salam said, you don't know what these people done after you, Ya Rasulullah. These people committed all types of innovation, all types of wrong actions after you. He will say to them, Suhkan, Suhkan, be off, I've got nothing to do with you. Do you want to be people like that? People sing about being with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. People talk about fake dreams. I saw the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Even though hadith is sahih, is true. Whoever sees the Prophet Muhammad has indeed seen the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But how do you know him? You don't know his shama'il. You don't know his characteristics. You live against the sunnah and you claim to see the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Or he comes to you, tells you to go against the sharia. Or he tells you to do an action against the sharia. That's not the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's nothing but the shaitan who came into your dreams. Because whoever really sees the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his dream. And that's why some of the ulama highlight, you should aspire to see the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because that is a ru'ya, a vision that will give you great conviction in your life. وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. Whoever strives in our path, we will guide them to our paths. So not this shallow understanding of the love of the Prophet Muhammad, but a deep conviction and understanding. And as you find that this scorching fire will not lessen. People may think that the fire may lessen and become lesser and lesser to a certain degree or wither away. مَأْوَاهُمْ جَهَنَّمْ كُلَّمَا خَبَتْ زِدْنَاهُمْ سَعِيرًا. Every time it begins to abate, we ignite it even more. So it's not like a normal fire, it just comes down and becomes easy. Even the least punishment that will be given to the uncle Abu Talib, the uncle of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, will be 2 shoes of the hellfire, 2 laces of the hellfire. And that heat will boil his head. That's the least punishment. Which individual wants to even face the least punishment? How can Muslims go around thinking, well, never mind, I'll go in punishment for a short while, then I'll come out of Jahannam. I'll go there for a short while and I'll make it to paradise one day. How can any Muslim think like that in their life? Every Muslim should be thinking that seek refuge from the fire. Protect yourself from the fire. Especially in final days of Ramadan. And as you find these narrations, Allah protect me from the fire. Whoever says that will be protected from the fire. But we don't seek refuge from the fire. We take it as a trivial action. Nothing important in our life. And then all types of muharramat. Gossiping, slandering, backbiting, cheating, stealing, evil speech, evil actions, evil glances. All of this. إن السمع والبصر والفؤاد كل أولئك كان عنه مسؤولا. All your faculties of seeing, of hearing, of listening, who will be asked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. كل أولئك كان عنه مسؤولا. So how can even a Muslim think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will just leave me alone? No Muslim should think that. Person should weep about their life, about every single thing that they've done in their life. And I hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cover all these things up. Just like He covered everything about us in this dunya, He covers it up in the akhirah as well. وأقول قولي هذا واستغفر لي ولكم ولجميع المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه غفور رحيم.